line ho, uyu line lero mwana mene, mwana wanzeru. Line ho,
uyu line lero mwana mene, mwana wanzeru. Ukacha mama wa amatengazaje kusesa bakomo pamaiwaje.
ukacha mama
Early morning
amatengazaje
kusesa bakomo pamaiwaje.
magolo
aline
amuya mikila
akuti line lero mwana mene, mwana wanzeru.
magolo aline
Makolo aline
amuya mikila.
Good afternoon, everybody, and we're at the end of the month, and hope you all had a wonderful time. And hopefully, I'm your host again. My name is Wura Ogunrotimi. So today, I'm always talking about the Scottish social work system, but today, we're going to be having a quick recap on our previous one because it's been a while, and then we'll touch on the emotional will, which was what I closed with the last time. So today we're going to be looking at obviously we'll be looking at the well-being will, and we're looking at safe. So under the well-being will, we're still on the very first well-being, which is safe. But what we're going to be doing today would take us through to the next one. So today, the last one I talked about, obviously how to ensure that our children are safe, particularly for us as African community. And under the safe, we looked at, the role of parents and the role of our community leaders, the role of everybody. Remember, we talked about it takes a village to raise a child. And obviously, it takes a village to raise a child is really the capture of the 8th well-being will. And under that, we spoke about ensuring that whoever you're leaving your children with, particularly like a childminder, ensuring that the childminder has done a PVG check, which I'm assuming we all know what a PVG is. So that's a criminal record check, and for protected vulnerable people, which obviously for children and young people. Then also we looked at the importance of ensuring that even in our religious churches, in our religious place of worship, so it could be the mosque, it could be the church, it could wherever we worship, it's very important that whoever looks after our children, they are also PVG checked. And remember, I talked about the need that for the PVG check, it can't be the basics, it needs to be the enhanced, because the enhanced PVG check ensures safety, whereby it's actually not just checking that the person is eligible to work, but it's also looking at the category of people that the person is eligible to work with. So in this case, for a Sunday school teacher, or for someone who looks after the children in a mosque, or someone who looks after your children as a childminder. So when I say childminder, you remember I was talking about the importance of ensuring that we have a registered childminder. We put our children with registered childminder. And even in creches, we need to ensure that whoever runs a crèche already is a registered one. And the reason for that is very simple. It's just to ensure that the safety of our children is always guaranteed. I suppose we could say, well, nothing is 100% guaranteed, but at least if something goes wrong, it's very easy, to report it and also trace and investigate, to investigate incidents. So in talking about safety of the children, remember we talked about, not ensuring that we don't leave our children with shopkeepers. I know sometimes, as Africans, sometimes, nip to our African shops and, you could say, oh, please, can you help me look after my child? And then let me just quickly pick something from Lidl or M&S or, just any shop, really, maybe a nearby shop. So, like I said, it's always very important that we ensure that people who are having the care of our children are checked. So when I say checked, I'm talking about being PVD checked, whereby we are 100% sure or 99% maybe sure that these people are allowed, they are allowed to look after children. Because think about it this way. If the person, maybe your Sunday school, in your church or in your mosque, maybe for instance, the people looking after your children are not checked and something goes wrong, one is not just a problem for the parent alone, it's also a problem for the religious body, because obviously it means they've not done their check, they've just put anybody there. And obviously when someone is checked, it means for you as a parent, your mind is at rest. Like we will say, we have peace of mind. So it's just for the peace of mind. And also, God forbid, if anything happens, maybe they have to do an investigation, So when we know that these people are checked, it makes our life easy. It makes things very easy for everybody in the community. And again, it brings us back to, it takes a village to raise a child, where the safety of our children is always paramount to us. And remember I said, safeguarding is everybody's business. Safeguarding is basically, it takes a village to raise a child, which is what the well-being wheel captures, which is what the getting it right for every child, it's all about. It's all interwoven. Obviously with the Scottish system, we call it getting it right for every child, which means literally it takes a village to raise a child, and that can only be done. Safeguarding is everybody's business. So on that note, remember the last time, I talked about the use of well-being, the use of emotional will. So today we're going to go into that, and then we'll use that as a conversation starter and a way of introducing us to the next stage, to the next well-being wheel. And I'll just quickly say that the emotional wheel is something that would probably resonate throughout or reoccur throughout all the well-being wheel, because I'm sure as parents, there are tools that we can learn to use. Some parents find it really useful. Most parents that use it, they find it very useful. And I'm sure a lot of us, probably those of us who have children in the nursery, in primary school, I think not so secondary school, but it's used differently in secondary school. But those who have children in nursery and primary school can relate with it. And also in the home front as well, for religious bodies, and even in our communities, for those who run the crèche or childminder, these are things that we can use. And, it begins to tell us things, and it could also allow us to identify concerns. It could also allow us to identify areas of need, and it could also allow us to understand, understand how to have conversations, particularly with professionals when concerns are raised with our children or with regards to our children. So on this note, I'll be going straight into the emotional wheel. Now, what is the emotional wheel? The emotional wheel, thank you. So the emotional wheel, for instance, is just something that emotion is, when we say emotion, it's just something that captures all the stages of our vulnerability. So it could be, emotional wheel can be used at any age, even for adults. For our parents, emotional wheels can be used. It's not something that is only unique to children. It's just a very good conversation starter. And in the home front, we can use it as games. So I know, there are some parents have said, they use it in the house. Some parents you can even use it as part of your routine in your household, whereby in the, like for instance, the emotional wheel captures it captures the emotions of the children. So it could be the child is happy, the child is sad, the child is angry, the child is excited. It could be that the child is frustrated. It could be, it could just be anything, anything, all the means of emotions that we feel, and when we use this emotion wheel, for the different ages, like the one that is being displayed is something that we can even use, for all ages. And mom, dad, mommy and daddies, grandparents, uncles, aunties, even our religious body, we can use it in such a way that it brings up conversation. And one thing I'll quickly say is when we're using the emotional wheel, it doesn't make you as a parent a bad person, or it doesn't make the child a bad person. Instead, it's a conversation starter whereby for the parents, you are able to talk about the feelings of those children and also your own feeling. So for instance, we have one, I actually like this particular one because it's something that, little children, even older children, or even adults in the household, it's something that you can create yours. You don't have to go and buy. It could just be, you could even look at pictures like funny, like faces. I'm sure little children watching will know what this is because they use it a lot in schools, just to capture their emotions, just to capture their well-being, and also to understand their mental balance. So for instance, we have, let's pick the first one, which is happy. So of course we're all happy. And there's this notion that, all Africans, well, I use the word notion. There's this notion that all Africans, we're always happy. That's the best way they describe us. We dance, we are happy, we sing. And, sometimes, for maybe when you're sad, some people sing when they're sad. Some people sing when they're happy. Some people sing when they're going through, maybe they're depressed. Just different things could lead to different types of emotion. And in this particular case, as a young, so if we look at happy, maybe as a child, maybe a child that is always happy, the child could be happy because, it could be, oh, I'm happy today because mom and dad, my mom is taking me to work, my mom is taking me to school. I mean, right now, the kids are home because of the lockdown. Some of the kids are home, obviously, because of the lockdown. Some children, they're really happy and excited to be home because obviously it means they don't have a specific routine. They don't have to wake up very early in the morning, to get themselves ready for school. Some children are happy because, now they know they can play a lot longer. Some children are happy because it could be they have to see mom and dad because a lot of mommies and daddies are having to work from home now. So some children are quite happy about that. Some children are happy because, they have their siblings, they have all their siblings at home. Some children are happy because, they get to eat. Some children, we see some funny things where, children are like, oh yes, I'm happy because I get to eat every time. Or some children are like, oh yes, I get to play. Oh yes, I have some of them, they are happy because they have this informal structure, of doing whatever they're doing. And a child that is happy, it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It's just to capture the emotion of the child. And then as a parent, maybe if a child, maybe in the morning, the child could be very happy, right? And then maybe obviously when they have to do their schoolwork, or maybe something could lead to a child being sad, for instance. So a child could go from being happy to being sad very quickly, right? Or mommies and daddies, they could go from being happy to being very sad quickly, right? And it's all okay. We could talk about it. Okay, what makes you sad? It could be, oh, yeah. So, like for instance, let's use our current situation, the lockdown. So some children, why they are happy to be at home with mom and dad, or happy to be at home with their parents, not having to go to school and stuff like that. Some children quickly they could become sad because they are missing their friends. It could be they're sad because they can't go and play. Like I suppose all of us are locked in right now. So we can't go out to the park for so long like we used to do. Our new normal is being locked up in a household, right? And it could be that some children, they could be sad because, they can't get to see their grannies, because maybe their grannies are not in their bubble. Some children are sad because, they can only see their friends or their families or other members of the family through video calls or through Zoom. We are all having, I suppose, we're all learning now to use what's the name, to use technology. We're all indirectly so dependent on technology, and it could be that some children are sad for that, and some children, for instance, they could be sad because some children could be scared. It could be that the child, so you can see, if you look at the wheel, you're going from happy to the very below, sad, and then it could be scared. Some children could be scared that, oh, I don't know what happens. COVID brings a lot of uncertainty. Will my mommy be sick? Will my daddy be sick? What happens if we're sick? How will people look at us? How do we, when do we go back to school? It brings a lot of uncertainty to children, where they are, oh, when do we go back to school? How do I, even just wearing the mask for children scares some of them. If you go to the supermarket now, the shopping areas now, it's not business as usual. We've got to do the 2 meters measurement in order for us to be on the queue, which was not what we all were used to in the past. Kids are allowed to play around. Some children would run around in the shops. Some children, most shops, they had children play area. But if you notice right now, all these things are now almost excluded, because all of us are being careful because of infection control. So it could be, as a child, the child is so scared of that, and it feels, oh, when I go to the shop, I'm scared if somebody touches me. Well, when I say touch, maybe in the past, children are, you could easily say hello to children easily, and kids will go and they make facial gestures. But now it's quite different because of the lockdown. And also, they could be scared for uncertainty. They could be scared, worrying, oh, when are we going to be able to travel back? For us as Africans, sometimes we have to go back to our home countries. And, being far away, it's something that in the past, we never really thought about, but now has become something that you actually begin to think about now. So children are scared, and then they're scared. They could just be scared for no reason. Right? They could be scared because maybe they've watched something, maybe on TV, maybe they watch something that's impacted on their emotions. So there's no set thing. But I think if we use the emotional wheel, it's easier for us as parents to be able to unpick, because that's what we professionals use to unpick the emotions of children, and young people when we work with them. So as a parent, the emotional wheel is something that you can use. For instance, in the morning, a child could, you could have it, maybe just have it in your kitchen, display it in your kitchen. You could do it, customize it, you could have the whiteboard. That's something we can, you could use a whiteboard. You know what I mean by the whiteboard. So like, you could buy the whiteboard from B&M, or maybe, what's it called? Or maybe ask that, just any shops really. You could buy the in the stationery area, go there and buy the what's the name? You could buy a whiteboard, or even you can create a whiteboard yourself. You don't have to break the bank to do all of this. But in the midst of doing that, it could even be that you write the names of your children in the household yourselves, your own names and the name of your children. Do a sticker. As parents, nowadays we're learning to be very, very creative. Because that's a reality for us professionals. We're always very creative around how we engage with children because of the age, because we always need to engage with them in an age-appropriate way. So for instance, you can have the names of your children, put them in a sticker, and then you can also, have these different emotions in a sticker. Create different emotions. There are a lot of resources online that can be used. You can have faces, and maybe in the mornings, probably before the children go out, and as a family, it's a bonding time as well, because you could use it and look at the emotions of the children in the morning, your own emotion and the emotions of the children. It becomes interactive, where everybody puts their different emotions, and maybe in the morning, depending on your routine in the morning, you could have that conversation. Oh, maybe for instance, let's say for talking sake, Jamal is maybe sick, is maybe happy this morning. What makes you happy? It could be, oh, I'm excited, I'm going to school, and I'm going to see my friends. It could have that there. And then It could be another child in the household could be, oh, I'm sad because I'm going to miss my mommy and daddy while I'm in school, or where I'm playing with my friends. As parents as well, you join in, because when you join in, it makes the children also secure to talk about their own emotions, whereby they don't just feel, oh, this emotion or what I'm saying is only just unique to you little children. Mommy and daddy, they're always happy. Some parents, as a parent, you could use the emotions as well to communicate your feelings to your children. So it could be, for instance, for talking sake, it could be mommy, for instance, mommy is sad. Maybe why is mom sad? Oh, I'm sad because this is my last day at work, or I'm sad because we're about to apply for a visa and we don't know what will happen. It could be that you're sad, it could be you're scared, it could be you're happy, it could be anything, and you use it to relate to your current circumstances. And in that way, you and your children are able to communicate, whereby even if the child could feel, oh, maybe you shared something, maybe something happened in the household. For instance, it could be, with the lockdown at the time. Remember, at the beginning of the lockdown, a lot of parents were followed because it wasn't business as usual. So some parents, they went from being very happy to being very sad or being very scared. So it could be maybe a parent, for instance, a parent who is being followed, for instance. You're going from having a constant wage to not having wage, and that could make you sad, that could make you scared. So what are you scared about? You could discuss it, with the emotional will. You could talk about, tell your children, oh, well, I'm sad because I used to, in my job, I've lost my job, or my job, I've been asked to go back home, for a period of time. Like those in the hospitality business, for instance, a lot of people are maybe working in the hospitality system. Some of them, there's a lot of uncertainty around that particular career. So it could be that, as a parent, you could talk about it with your children. Oh, I'm sad because, in my workplace, there's nothing happening just now. And I'm not just sad, I'm also scared, because then we have to, we're worried about how to pay our mortgage. We're worried about how to pay our rent. We're worried about how to ensure that, we are able to provide for you as children. We're worried about our families back at home. You could be worried about anything, as a parent, because you have a right to be worried. You have a right to be angry. For instance, in the area, like in the emotions of angry, you could look at, oh, I'm angry. What are you angry about? Oh, I'm angry because, oh, somebody said something bad to me today. You have that conversation and you begin to unpick the conversation with the children. And one thing that this emotional will does is it also allows you to also unpick uncomfortable conversation, discuss and unpick uncomfortable conversation. Because in the midst of the emotions, some children, they've been able to disclose things around bullying, their experience on bullying, their experience about how people perceive them. They have been able to also disclose experience about how things happen at home. So for instance, like a child, there's been instance where through the emotional will, a child has said, you know what, I'm sad because mommy and daddy are always arguing, right? And remember, arguing for a child, you need to understand how a child processes things. And for it, when a child says that, of course, as professionals, we want to unpick what does that mean? And then that's when we begin to ask questions. Oh, you're sad because mommy and daddy argue. Then obviously we engage the children. How often does this happen at home? How does that make you feel? What is the thing that what are the things that mommy and daddy argue about? So now on the flip side, in the home front, because I'm talking about it from a professional side, right? So on the flip side, from the home front, we can also, as parents, right, also unpick things. So a child could say, oh, mommy, I'm scared. Why are you scared? Or daddy, I'm scared. Why are you scared? It could be, oh, I'm scared because my teacher shouted at me. Or I'm scared because my childminder screamed at me, or I'm scared because there's a child that keeps shoving me, at school, or there's a child that pushes me at school, or my friends don't want to play with me. Don't just shut them up. With the emotional will, talk about it. Unpick that conversation with the child. Let's find out what it is. Let's find out how that impacts on the child. What does the child perceive as being excluded, or being shoved around, or being pushed away, or being shouted at? Because it also gives you, as a parent, it allows you to raise concerns, right? For instance, if a child is saying, oh, in school, my teacher shouts at me for talking sick, right? Or my childminder shouts at me, or maybe in the place of worship, when they go to their place of worship, the Sunday schools or their Friday schools, I'm guessing for the Muslims, it could be maybe the way they perceive the person. And then, as a parent, it also allows you to have healthy conversation with the person that the concern is being raised about. Because remember, as professionals, these are the tools that we use to unpick information, and also to establish information, and also to raise concern, and also to address what's it called, and also to address intervention, to address effective to address effective what's it called, effective intervention. Now, for instance, as a parent, right? So it could be that maybe let's give a scenario. So maybe a child, maybe maybe Andy, a little boy called Andy comes home and says to mommy and daddy, oh, maybe you ask questions like, oh, how was today? How was your day today? And the child says, and Andy comes home and says, mommy, I had a very lovely day, but I am sad. Oh, why are you sad? Oh, because my auntie or miss whoever it is in school, or maybe in the religious home, or maybe just it could just be anything. The child could come and say, well, somebody spoke to me badly today. Now, as a parent, you want to understand, a parent, a caregiver, it's important to engage that child. Now, the person spoke to me badly. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? What was it that was said? It could just be, it could be anything, because children are very sensitive. So it could just be anything. And of course, if a child is spoken to in a way that he or she is not used to being spoken to at home, they perceive it differently, right? So you could, as a parent, you begin to unpick that. What does that mean? What is it? Then you understand it. When you understand what it is, you ask, how often does this happen? The child tells you what it is. Make the home a safe place, right? Where the child can actually speak to you about everything and anything. And by doing that, it could be you, as a parent, because you've made it such a safe space to speak, the child expresses their concerns, expresses why they're sad, expresses why they're happy, whatever the emotion is. You are able to also, you're also able to go speak to, maybe it could be whoever the concern has been raised with. It could be in the body, it could be in the church, it could be in school, it could be in a crèche, it could be in the nursery. You're able to articulate how to go about it and say, well, you know what? I've been having this conversation. My son has been having this conversation. My daughter has been having this conversation with me at home. And she's always sad. He or she is always sad when this, you mention, name it. Maybe when you speak to my child like this is how my child, this is how he feels, he or she feels, right? Are there ways that we could look at how you speak to the child? And if your concerns are not being addressed, as a parent, you have a right to make complaints. You have a right to demand a better service. You have a right to demand a better and improved service. Because remember, like I said, it takes a village to raise a child, and safeguarding is everybody's business. So safeguarding is not just having a good home or having a beautiful fancy home or having or the child being in a good education. A child could be in a very good school and yet the child is being emotionally dented. So it's very important. Like using the emotional will allows the children and yourselves to have a conversation at home whereby you are able to have that deep conversation. You are able to have a conversation in an age appropriate way. And if their services, maybe their teachers or whatever service that the child goes to, and the child is happy, let the service know. Oh, my child is always happy coming to school, and children, they will talk. When they have an environment that allows them to thrive, they will talk, right? And emotional will also allows you to have what we call an in-depth conversation, right? So the child is able to name it, is able to name the feeling, is able to name and identify the feeling, is able to express and identify the feeling he or she had at the time, right? And over the time, as a parent, through the emotional will, by using it, it's not too late to use it. It's not something that we can't use. It's never too late. You could use it for anybody, maybe your adult children, maybe even at home, as adults, you could use it as a way of starting conversation. You could use it as an icebreaker. You could use it as, what's it called? You could also use it as a way of maybe like a game. There are a lot of emotional will games. So there are games, I think there's something called Cluedo. You can look at it and, there are different games that you can be used to unpick emotions at home. And even this one as well, some parents use it as, some people call it emotional clock, for the nursery school. The teachers, they use it as emotional clock, where in the mornings all the children put, they have their names on the stickers and they put their name on their emotional board. So they put their names, this is how Jenny feels, this is how Lola feels, this is how Mary feels. You put the different names there. Then they talk about it. They have a conversation. In the morning they talk about it, and at the end of the day, they also go back again to talk about it. So it could be that maybe in the morning the child was sad, and then by the evening, when they're afternoon, when they're leaving school, it could be that the child is happy. And children, they're very interesting being, and children, they relate on how they're on their feeling a lot. And so it could be that maybe in the morning the child was really sad. Oh, I'm sad because my mommy, I'm leaving. My mommy has left me in the nursery, and I wish I would go back with my mommy. And then in the afternoon, when at the end of the day, when they look at their emotional will, the child has changed it, and it could be, oh, I'm so happy. Why are you happy? Oh, I'm happy because I was able to play with my friends. I'm happy because I was able to, I was able to play in the playground. I was able to do messy games, and I know for us, for those of us who have teenagers, these are also very exciting things to use for our teenage children, whereby you're able to unpick them. You're able to understand their feelings away from just, this child has just been a difficult teenager. Because what do we mean by being difficult as teenagers? Especially for us who are migrants, for those of us who are migrants, coming to the country, the immigration status of our parents. Oh yeah. So the immigration status of the parents, does impact the children, particularly the older kids. Sometimes the younger ones, they don't, what's it called? A lot of time, the younger ones, it's very easy for them to adapt. But for our older children, the teenagers, it could, they are coming from a different country to another one. And sometimes that has a lot of impact on their feeling, on their emotions, and their mental well-being, whereby, they are having to leave all their friends behind in their home countries, and they're having to make a new friend. As children, You know, the little ones, sometimes it's very easy for them to make for them to make friends, because as little children, you know, the toddlers, you know, it's very easy. They acknowledge, you know, if people smile at them, it's always very easy. But for the teenagers, remember, they have a formative year in probably the country, in their home country, and then they're having to relocate to a new country. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty about how would they be perceived. You know, there's uncertainty about how their accent, you know, how their accent plays out. Will people understand what they're saying? You know, the media as well has a huge impact on our teenagers and how they're being perceived, and their cultural identity as well. Just a quick one. I just want to acknowledge Comrade Olalekon. And so he says, hello, we're still counting following your intervention and early support strategic plan in the project first year. Oh, sorry. Please, can you put that up? And in project first year, we have protected 12 children from entering care system and directly empowered and impact 100 plus more family through Afrocentric parenting course. Special thanks to all our individuals and group supporters, as well as partnering organization following our continuous advocacy. All right, thank you. Yeah, I think that's something that I would probably talk about that later, because you know every case is quite unique, and I think we need to be. For me, one thing I would say, in as much as I get what you're saying, comrade, one thing I would say is we need to be very careful on how we talk about Afrocentric parenting. There's nothing. Yes, there is the African parenting. And also, I think that's something we could talk about. I'm very happy to speak to speak to you much later after the program. But one thing I would say is we need to be very, very careful, because every case of a child that is put in the system that comes on care, or that is put in child protection, or that goes through the child protection system, every case is unique. And like I always say to people, in as much as I get the agitation, I get the anxiety, we need to also take a step back and try and understand the system. And I think that's why we have this program here, where we're talking about the system. We're talking about how to engage the system. Because if you understand how the system works, it's very easy to engage with services. And it's also very easy to question services. And it's also very easy to demand a better service. So, like you can, when you understand the system, like we're talking about this emotional will, and I know a lot of parents who's called me behind the scene to say, you know, we never knew there was something called emotional will. You know, concerns are just being raised and we don't know why these concerns are being raised. But when you use this emotional will, for instance, like I'm saying to you, these are things that we use to unpick concern. These are things that we use to evidence concerns. So as an African community, if we understand the tool that is used for assessment, or the tool that is used to make assessment, it's very easy for us to engage in the system. It's very easy for us to engage with the system. So it's easy to engage in the system, with the system, and it's also very easy to demand a better service. I'm not saying anywhere that social work service is perfect, because it's not. Every service is not perfect. But when you understand how the service, when you understand how things work, it's easier for you to demand a better and a quality service that is tailored to your needs as a community. And one of the reasons, in as much as I'm a social worker, I'm also an African first before being a social worker. And I'm also a parent before being a social worker. And that's something, to me, what I'm doing here is very, very passionate for me. It's something that I don't need to be paid to get it done. I'm just so passionate about ensuring that we all understand. So I'm hoping that you can reach out to me maybe after the program, and I'm quite happy to have more detailed conversation with you if you want. If you want. Now, oh, sorry about yeah. So back to the emotional will. Like I was saying, for the teenagers, we've talked about the younger ones. We've talked about how it can be used. Now, for the teenagers, we also have the emotional will. Like I said, could go a long way in engaging our teenagers in capturing their thoughts, in capturing their feelings, and in capturing their anxiety. It can also be used to also capture their journey of integration and acculturalization. So when I say, well, their integration into their new community, because say for instance, a child is coming from maybe let me for talking sake, a child is coming from maybe for instance like Sudan, for instance, where there's a lot of things going on right there. The child is not just migrating just on an economic basis. The child, the teenager is, and the parents, they flee to a safer country, right? And it's possible that the traumas that the child has witnessed, because, when things are unsettled in an area, for instance, like Sudan, they've had their fair share of unrest. The countries like Rwanda, countries like, most countries, there's always something happening in one country, even including here in the UK, there are things happening. And, as teenagers, because they're at that age and stage where their hormones, aside from developing, their hormones is also developing, and it's also all over the place, because of their age and stage. So it's important that, with the emotional will, it's important to engage teenagers. So for instance, as parents who have just migrated, so if you have teenagers and you have just migrated, this is something that we can use in our household, where we can look at, we can engage them. Maybe they are sad. What are they sad about? Are they sad because they're leaving their country? Are they sad because of the friends they've left behind? What does that mean to them? How are they able to make new friends? You unpick conversations with them. Some of them are sad because, children, especially teenagers, we can be quite brutal. Teenagers are quite brutal to themselves. There's school, there's passive racism going on. I remember, I think there was a newspaper article where a Chinese boy in one of the schools in Edinburgh, had gone all the way. He went all the way to document his narrative and his experience on racism, where he was being called names, where he was being called very racist names by a teacher. And of course, the teacher got disciplined, he got struck off and everything. But just imagine, as a parent of that teenage boy, the boy must have gone through a lot of emotions. He must have been anxious. Think about, going to school where you're supposed to go and learn and be safe. You're supposed to work with teachers who are responsible adults, and then, the children are being called names, they're being called very racist names. That would have made that teenager very anxious. It would have made that teenager very scared. It would have made that teenager very, very angry. The emotions are all over the place, because nobody, if you don't call your kids, why would you call your kids bad names? If you don't call your kids bad names at home, so why should somebody else, a professional who should know better, whose job is to ensure that every child in their care is safe, why would they want to call the kids different names? And also, it could also be, like teenagers, for instance. I've heard of instances, particularly in our African communities, where, some of the teenagers have been slagged off for the way they speak. If you listen to me very carefully, I'm not speaking I don't have a Western accent. I'm a Nigerian, so my Nigerian accent, I'm from the Yoruba tribe. So, and I know for a fact that, would have had, what's it called? Well, thank you, Mr. Samuel. Yeah. So would have known as a Yoruba, people who are Yoruba would easily pick up my Yoruba accent, So some teenagers have been slagged by friends or even professionals, right? saying, oh, we can't understand what you're saying. And these are things that make teenagers very anxious. These are things that could make teenagers very, very timid. It could make them very angry because they pay attention to how, they're at that age and stage where their identity, where the way they are perceived matters to them, right? So as teenagers, the emotional wheel is something that personally I recommend that is used daily with them. Maybe as parents, get to know them, get to understand them through the emotional wheel. You don't have to do it the way you would do it with younger children. You could do it in a different way. You could, be creative with it as a parent, because for us as professionals, we're very creative in the way we use this emotional wheel with all different age and stage of children. Now, there's something called Teens Talk. I'll probably look for that and perhaps share it, because I think that's something that could be very useful. Yeah, these are things that could be very useful. I will look. There's a link that we can get some of these things, even on Google. So if you go on Google, you can type emotional wheel on Google and just click image. I think on Google, instead of clicking word, you click image. So for instance, let me see if I can use just a minute. Pardon me, please. So I'm not sure if you can see this clearly. So on Google, right? If you go on emotional, oh sorry. So on Google, if you type emotional wheel, and instead of clicking on all, just click on image. And if you click on the image on the search engine, if you click on image, if you click on image, you just you should be able. Don't buy it, because they're free. They're free charts. A lot of them are free there. Just look for the one that is free, and just print it. It's all there. It's all there for you. You don't have to. What's it called? You don't have to buy, because there's no need buying it. You can easily screenshot it, or even skin grab it, like they say. I'm beginning to learn new ways of doing things now. The world of COVID, where we're all learning how to use new words for our day-to-day access of information. So you can go on Google and just type on Google emotional wheel. You can type, teen talk. I would look for link. I would look for stuff and send it. And these are things that we can use on Google. Oh, thank you. So these are things that we can use on Google. We can go on Google. We can look at it. Just screen grab it. And they have a lot of them. Some of them are colored. Some of them, for the younger children, I suppose the colored one will be more attractive for them. And also you could look at, you could even look at the different emotions. There are some that have the faces, the different emotion faces. So some of them have happy, some of them have sad. Yeah, something like that. We can go on them, print them in colored, and we put them in the house. It could be I would say maybe put them in the kitchen or put them in the sitting room. Yeah, that's a very good one. So we could put them in the sitting room. We could put them in, and you just get paper. As parents, let's just be creative. We can even have names of our children. Get the children, to draw themselves, maybe their faces and their names, whatever it is that they choose to do. Make it an activity. Everybody have their name, and you have this big chart. Laminate it. These are things that you can do at home. You don't need to go and buy, because we don't usually buy all of this. Yeah, that's a very good one. Make it into clock. Be creative with it. You can be very, very creative, and put different people's let everybody in the household, including yourself as parents, put your names on it, and engage with the children with it. And when I say children, obviously I mean our teenagers and young adults. You can engage with them. For the little children, you can even put like faces. You can have the happy face, you can have the sad face. All of these things are there on the internet. You don't need to go and buy. I think it's a waste of money, I would say, buying all of these things, because the internet is our mini friend now, where we are all having to go there and download things and use tools. There's also there's a website for professionals, but I think I would confuse you if I give you that website, because most of the things there would not make sense to you, because you wouldn't understand the context of which is being used. Now, in going on that, next week we're going to be talking about. I'm going to show you, or I'm going to talk us through an assessment that I think will be very, very good to use at home. So remember, I've shared with you the emotional wheel. So next week, or next time when I come on board, I will be sharing another tool with you. And I think that tool will make a lot of difference in the household. Now, for us as professionals, we use it a lot. And I think, and I also know that tool is going to be very useful, particularly for us as African families, right? Where we are able to use it at home. Because using it at home, so using that particular assessment tool at home would resonate so well with a lot of us within our community. It's not just using it at home. Even the religious bodies, the religious place of worship, you can use it with children. Like this emotional will can be used with children, even in place of worship. Those of you who are childminders, you can use it in your child mind. You can use it with children that you mind. So we can use it. And then I'll just quickly say, if you have any question, please throw out your questions. I am here because I'm here to help as much as I can. So if you have any question, please direct your question to the radio station and to the OY Media Scotland. They would definitely get in touch with me, and I would make sure I address your questions. And also, one thing I would say is I would encourage us to have very interactive conversation with me. Yes, I know it's a radio show, but the beauty of the radio show is when we are having interactive conversation, where we're able to talk to ourselves. You can ask me questions on live, and if you want, I don't know how possible that is. I'm sure people can phone in. I would, Mr. Samuel, the coordinator, the anchor, can probably tell us how to go about that. I would love people to phone in and ask me questions. Let's unpick. We're looking at the well-being wheel, but it doesn't mean we have to rush through it, because the whole information, I believe, is power. The more we're able to have this interactive information, interactive conversation, the better for everybody. There's one tree does not make a forest, and there's no individual that knows it all. Yes, I'm talking from the capacity of a social worker, but at the same time, remember, I'm not just a social worker to you. I am your sister. I am your daughter. I am your auntie. I'm part of you. I'm one of you. Forget about, yes, in as much as I acknowledge my profession, I'm also one of us. I'm an African. I'm a parent myself. And I know what it looks and what it feels like to be powerless. I understand what it feels like. I've migrated into the country myself. So I understand the loneliness that comes with it. So I've been told that, people can call in next time. So please, if you want to call in, the number will be displayed is 0141 39 11997. That's the number to please call on. Call, email, get your answers, get your questions. I didn't just want to be talking to you. I didn't just want to be talking at you. I want you to call in, ask me questions, and I'll be able to answer as honest as I can. At the end of the day, the joy of everybody is to ensure that while we're settling down in Scotland, we also understand how the system works, so that we're able to engage with the system in a way that the system understands where we are coming from culturally, and at the same time, the system is also able to also understand our anxieties, understand our apprehensions, and also understand how to integrate with us. Okay? So on this note, like I said, next time when I come on board, I will be talking, if we have no questions, because I would love to address questions. If there are questions, please throw the questions at me. I'm more than happy to answer you, and I will be very open and honest with you. And obviously, if you have, I understand the whole thing around confidentiality, and if you feel there are things that you don't feel comfortable saying on the phone, and you want to call me, you want to get in touch with me, please reach out to the anchor of the program, and they would definitely get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to help you or to advise as best as I can. So on this note, I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time, and I'm actually very interested to know how people are getting on. If people are using those who would go ahead to use the emotional wheel, I'll be very interested to know how you're getting on with it. How, let's look at it, because these are things that we use for assessment. So I would love to hear your views on what you think about it. Is it working for you? For those who would use it, is it working for you? If it's working for you, what is it that is working for you? How is it working for you? And if there are ways that you think, oh, we could do it differently, how can it be done differently? Remember, we're all learning from each other. While I'm sharing the information, we're also learning from each other, right? So on that note, I would say have a wonderful Saturday evening. Enjoy yourself, relax as much as you can, and keep safe. Let's save our NHS, okay? Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful weekend, and happy new month in advance. Thank you. Bye.
Lineho, uyu linelelo mana wanzeru. Lineho,
Lineho, uyu linelelo mwana wanzeru. Ukacha mama wa amatengazaje kusesa pakomo pamaiwaje.
ugaja mama
Early morning
amadingataje
kusesa pakomo la maiwage.
magolo wali amuya mikila
Akutili nerero mwana wanzeru.
magolo wali amuya mikila
Akutili nerero mwana wanzeru. Lineho, uyu linerero mwana wanzeru. Lineho, uyu linerero mwana wanzeru.
Agire gogo wana madingo Yamu ya mikira Kudi na madingo Mwana mwana wanzeru Akide gogo wana madingo Damu ya mikila
Mukuti na madingo mwana meneyu
mwana wanzeru
Simuku na mako
Kawizi na mwe
ni malota ine Bambo wanga tandisi
na salandeka Kawizi na mwe
ni malota ine Bambo wanga tamwalira
na salandeka Gondo mama Gondo une mama mwe
Gondo
mama chalamanda
Tafera mwenda we Gondo mama Gondo une mama mwe Gondo mama chalamanda Utafera mwenda we
In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my life, my strength, my song. His cornerstone, His solid ground. Firm to the fiercest droughts and storm. What height of love, what depth of peace. When fears are stilled, when strife is ceased. My comforter, my all in all. Here in the love of Christ I stand. Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness of God, He lay, blessed be this gift of love, our righteousness, sworn by the one He came to save. Still on the cross, and Jesus there, the right of God was justified for every sin. On Him was laid, yeah, in the death of Christ I live. Òrìṣà bí aṣọ wọn yálà lábàrò. Sweet mother. Òrìṣà bí aṣọ wọn yálà lábàrò. Màmá tó gbé mi sínú fóṣù mẹ́sàn-án tó pọ̀n mí sẹ́yìn fọ́dún mẹ́ta ó gbìyànjú kí n lè jẹ́ nìyàn láyé tí wá ọjọ́ tó pé bí mọ́nú torí kí n lè jẹ kí n lè wọṣọ ó ṣalátìlẹ́yìn mi torí kí n lè jẹ́ nìyàn mo dúpẹ́ ó ṣe ìyá níyá mi ìyá lálábàárò èjìká tí ọjà ṣọwọ́ jábọ́ ẹ bá mi kí màmá mi abiyamọ.
Ẹ kú kàlẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ wo ọkùnrin obìnrin ọmọdé àti àgbà olólùfẹ́ yín ìbùkún olúwa ọmọ Sànúsí tí ẹ mọ̀ sí Àpèkẹ́ tún dé pẹ̀lú àrà ọ̀tọ̀ àlọ́ tó kún fún ọgbọ́n òye àti ọ̀rọ̀ ìjìnlẹ̀ Yorùbá ẹ máa bá wa ká lọ àṣà Yorùbá kò mọ̀ ní parun.
Ìtàn ògbójú ọdẹ nínú igbó irúnmọlẹ̀ ń tẹ̀síwájú. Èmi náà ni Apekeade, mo kí wa. Lọ́sẹ̀ tó lọ a kà débi tí ó ti di wípé wọ́n ti ń gbèrò tẹ̀lé ọba tí kọ̀ọ̀kan náà ò jọ. Wọ́n ti wá mú débi wípé wọ́n fẹ́ fi tipátipá lé ọba lọ sí ẹnu ẹranko búburú tí yóò ti ibẹ̀ kú. Ẹ̀yin náà sì mọ àkàrà ògùn. Ó ti ṣe kí ni? Ó ti dìde fúyà pé dípò ọba òun dọ́gán ló gbúdọ̀ lọ. Ìtàn wa wá ń tẹ̀síwájú. Nígbà tí mo sọ báyìí tán, ọba wò mí bú sí ẹkún, ó sì bẹ̀ mí kí n má lọ. Ṣùgbọ́n mo ti pinnu àti lọ. owó títí n kò gbọ́ mo wí pé jàgùdà pálí n ò lọ ọkàn mi ti dìde gbáà gbogbo ọ̀rọ̀ tó ń sọ ẹ̀yìn etí mi ló ń bá lọ. Mo dìde ní ilẹ̀ fún mo ní kí àwọn irin náà mú mi lọ sí ìwò ẹranko náà kí n lọ pàdé ikú mi. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni gbogbo wọn tẹ̀lé mi tìbínú wọn kò sì káàánú mi wọ́n wí pé èmi ni ó fi ọwọ́ mi fa ọ̀ràn tí mo rí. Kí n tó lọ mo ránṣẹ́ lọ sí ilé mi kí wọ́n bá mi mú àdá àti ọ̀bẹ asọ́rọ̀ mi wọ́n sì ti mú wọn dé tèmi tí àdá àti ọ̀bẹ mò ń lọ. Ṣùgbọ́n àwọn iwin wọ̀nyí ń fi mí rẹ́rìn-ín ni nítorí tí ẹni tí ó ṣe ju tèmi kò lè pa irú ẹranko bẹ́ẹ̀ gẹ́gẹ́ bí èrò wọn sí. Láìpẹ́ náà a dé ibi ìwò yìí. Ìwò náà tóbi púpọ̀ ó sì wà ní abẹ́ òkúta ńlá kan. Bí mo ti dé ibẹ̀ mo fa àdá mi yọ mo mú ọ̀bẹ asọ́rọ̀ mi mo sán ṣòkòtò mi lé dáadáa mo sì gbé ọ̀fọ̀ kí èèkan ẹranko náà wọlé. Lẹ́yìn èyí ni mo bọ́ sínú ìwò náà tí mò ń wá ẹranko yìí kiri. Ọ̀fọ̀ tí mo pè ní jẹ́ èèkan ẹkùn náà sì ti wọlé kí n tó rí òun pàápàá. Bí ó ti rí mi ó fi òpópó ọ̀dọ̀ mi ṣe ọ̀nà mo ń sábọ̀. Bí ó sì tilẹ̀ jẹ́ pé ẹ̀rù rẹ̀ bà mí síbẹ̀ mo pinnu àti pa etí ọwọ́ mi kí ó tó pa mí jẹ. Mo mú ọ̀bẹ asọ́rọ̀ mi daindain. Bí ó ti kù díẹ̀ kí ó dé ọ̀dọ̀ mi yóò fò mọ́ mi bí àṣà tí í fò mọ́ adìyẹ ṣùgbọ́n òun kò sá nítorí kí òun tó fò ní èmi pàápàá ti pèrò àti fọ́ lójú mo sì ti fi ṣóńṣó ọ̀bẹ mi ṣe ìwọ̀n ojú rẹ̀. Fífò tí ó sì fò pẹ̀lú ọ̀bẹ mi ni ó ti ojú bọ̀ ó sì wọ inú ojú rẹ̀ lọ. Lẹ́yìn eléyìí mo sá sẹ́yìn díẹ̀ nítorí tí inú rẹ̀ rù. N kò lè fa ọgbọ́n mi yọ lójú rẹ̀ mọ́ ṣùgbọ́n ojú rẹ̀ ti fọ́. Bí oró ọ̀bẹ náà sì ti ń túbọ̀ mú bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ó ń fò tí ó ń wá mi kiri. Ìbá ṣe pé ọwọ́ rẹ̀ tẹ̀ mí lákòókò náà ni nǹkan kì bá ti ṣe ẹnu rẹ̀ o. Nígbà tí mo rí i pé ó bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí rẹ̀ mo súnmọ́ mo dì ní ọrùn mo fẹ́ rọ ní ọrùn sí ẹ̀yìn kí n fi ẹ̀yìn rẹ̀ lélẹ̀ kí n sì gún ní asọ́rọ́ ní inú. Ṣùgbọ́n inú bí ó ń yàn mí sọ̀rọ̀ mo sì fi ẹ̀yìn náà òkúta. Lẹ́yìn èyí ni ó tún sá gìrì síwájú bóyá òun lè rí mi. Ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀tọ̀ ni ibi tí mo ṣubú sí. N kò pọ̀ púpọ̀ kí n tó dìde nítorí mo rí i pé ó túbọ̀ ń rẹ̀. Bí mo sì ti gbìyànjú dìde tán ni mo mú àdá mi mo rọra yọ́ kẹ́lẹ́ lọ sí ọ̀dọ̀ rẹ̀. Nígbà tí mo sì dé ibẹ̀ tán mo fi gbogbo agbára mi gbé àdá mo sì ṣá a mọ́lé ọrùn. Àdá yìí ràn díẹ̀ kí òun pàápàá sì tó paradà mo dì í mú mo bá fi ìjà pa ìta. A jà títí a sì gbé ara wa mọ́lẹ̀ ní ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ìgbà. Níkẹyìn ṣá ó dìde ó ń sá lọ èmi náà sì dì í ní ìdìmú mo tẹ àdá mi wọ́n ṣòkòtò mi ẹranko yìí ń wọ́ mi lọ. Ó wọ́ mi tó ìṣẹ́jú márùn nínú ìwò náà kí ó tó dúró kí ó tó máa mí hẹlẹ̀. Bí mo sì ti kíyèsí pé ó rẹ̀ mo dì í ní ọrùn mú ní ojú ọgbẹ́ rẹ̀ mo fi gbogbo agbára mi fà sẹ́yìn. Ó tàkìtì ó sì fi ẹ̀yìn lélẹ̀ kí ó sì tó di pé ó rápálá dìde mo ṣá ní àdá nínú gbogbo ìfun rẹ̀ tú jáde. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni pa ẹranko burú yìí ti dá. A gbọ́ pé mo pa náà ṣùgbọ́n ó kù bí wọn ó ti ṣe owó jáde. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni bí n kò bá lè fà á jáde nínú ìwé kí àwọn ẹni wọn ní rí owó mi kò ní yọ. Nígbà tí mo sì dì ní ẹsẹ̀ tí mo fi agbára mi fa ẹranko náà á rọ́jú paradà ní o ó tóbi púpọ̀. Ẹ̀rù kọ́ bà mí mo sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ṣe iyèméjì pé bóyá ni wọn ó lè fà jáde. Ṣùgbọ́n nígbà tí mo tó ronú mo rí pé ó yẹ kí n ṣa gbogbo agbára mi kí ó tó di pé mo fi sílẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Mo bá rọra lọ jókòó díẹ̀ mo ní sinmi. Nígbà tí mo sinmi tán tí mo mú àdá mi àti ọ̀bẹ asọ́rọ̀ mi tí mo tẹ̀ wọ́n bọ ìdí tán mo hé ní ẹsẹ̀ mo sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí lu gbogbo agbára mi. Bírébíré mo wọ́ jáde ọjà rẹ̀. Jíjáde tí mo jáde n kò dúró mọ́ mo fi orí lé ọ̀nà ìlú mò ń wọ́ lọ. Nígbà tí ó sì tó dédé agogo 6 alẹ́ mo yọ sí ìlú ìlú. Igbe sì ta gbogbo ará ìlú náà bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí wò mí tìyànù. Láti ìgbà tí mo ti lọ ni ọba ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọkún nítorí mi ó ṣe bí mo ti kú mi. Gbogbo àwọn tí bá mi dé etí ihò náà pàápàá ṣe bí mo ti kú pẹ̀lú. Nítorí nígbà tí mo bọ́ sínú ihò lójú wọn tí wọ́n sì dúró díẹ̀ tí n kò padà ni àwọn ti wá sí ilé tí wọ́n sì ti wí fún gbogbo ará ìlú pé ọwọ́ ti bà mí. Ẹ̀yin náà lè fi ojú inú wo bí inú ọba yóò ti dùn tó nígbà tí ó rí mi. Ayọ̀ náà ti pọ̀ jù kò ṣeé fi ẹnu sọ. Àti ìgbà náà ni mo ti túbọ̀ di ọ̀rẹ́ mi inú ọba tí kò sí ohun tí ó lè ṣe láìsọ fún. Ohun tí mo bá wí ní ìlú abẹ ní ògì. Ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀pọ̀ ẹ̀kẹ́ tẹ̀ ń dàgbà ni. Inú ọmọ Ádámù ń bàjẹ́. Mo di bàbá tán inú ń bí wọn. Bí èmi àti ọba ṣe ń ṣe kò dùn mọ́ ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn nínú. Wọ́n ń wá ọ̀nà àti dá ìjà sí àárín wa. Wọ́n sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí í sọ ọ̀rọ̀ àlébù nípa mi fún ọba. Wọ́n pa irọ́ títí, wọ́n di rìkíṣí títí, ṣùgbọ́n òun kò fetí sí wọn. Ó wá ṣẹlẹ̀ pé ọba ní ajá kan. Abàmì ajá pátápátá gbáà ni. Gbogbo eyín ẹnu rẹ̀ jẹ́ kìkì wúrà, gbogbo irun ara rẹ̀ sì jẹ́ kìkì ilẹ̀. Ṣókó títí ṣe alágbẹ̀dẹ ọ̀run ni ó fi ajá náà ta ọba lọ́rẹ ní ọjọ́ tí òun ọba gorí oyè. Ọba fẹ́ràn ajá yìí púpọ̀, a sì máa ṣe ìlérí nígbàkúgbà pé bí ẹnikẹ́ni bá lọ ṣe ajá òun ní ìjàmbá, tí ó bá sì jẹ́ pé òun lọ mọ ẹni náà, òun yóò fi olúwa rẹ̀ fún àwọn ọ̀dọ́mọkùnrin ìlú kí wọ́n jẹ níyà tí ó bá burú jù lójú wọn. Àti ọjọ́ tí mo ti dé ìlú yìí ni mo ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí máa ṣe ìtọ́jú ajá yìí. N ò sì jẹ́ kí ìyà kankan jẹ, òun pàápàá tilẹ̀ ti mọ ojú mi. Ṣùgbọ́n nígbà tí ó di ọjọ́ kan, mo fẹ́ ajá yìí kù, mo sì lọ sí ọ̀dọ̀ ọba, mo béèrè bí ó bá rí. Ó wí fún mi pé òun kò rí. Àti èmi àti ọba wá títí a kò sí rí. Níkẹyìn ọba lu àkókò kí gbogbo ará ìlú pé. Láìpẹ́ gbogbo wọn sì péjọ sí àárín ọjà. Ọba pàápàá sì wà láàrin wọn. Ó jókòó lé orí ìtẹ́ rẹ̀, èmi pẹ̀lú jókòó sí apá ọ̀tún rẹ̀, mo súnmọ́ tímọ́tímọ́. Nígbà tí òṣèré bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ̀rọ̀, wí fún wọn bí ó ti jẹ́ ohun ẹ̀dùn pé òun kò rí ajá tí ṣòkò tí alágbẹ̀dẹ ọ̀run fún òun lọ́jọ́ tí òun gun orí oyè. Àti bí èmi àti òun ti wá ajá náà títí tí a kò rí. Ó sì tún sọ pẹ̀lú pé òun bi àwọn ará ìlú kí wọ́n má ṣàṣìṣe ìrànlọ́wọ́ pa ọ̀rọ̀ náà. Ọba fẹ́rẹ̀ máì ti parí ọ̀rọ̀ ìlú nígbà tí ọkùnrin kan dìde tí ó gbé ẹnu lé ọ̀rọ̀ ní. Kábíyèsí ọba, kọ́lọ́run bùn yín lẹ́mìí. Kọ́lọ́run má jẹ́ kí ikú àìròtẹ́lẹ̀ pa yín. Kọ́lẹ́dà má jẹ́ kí àrùn fìdí yín ra ilẹ̀. Kọ́ba lèmi lè ṣe gbà yín lọ́wọ́ ọ̀tá ilé àti ọ̀tá òde. Ojú oró ni. Ìlékè omi ò ṣí bàtà ní ìlékè odò. Ẹ̀yin lẹ́ẹ̀lékè àwọn ọ̀tá yín. Iwájú lọ̀pọ̀ ibi tí ń rí sí, iwájú lọ́wọ́ yín á máa lọ. Àìrídìí òkun, àìrídìí ọ̀ṣà, a kì í rídìí ọmọ olú gélegéle. Àwọn abínúkú yín kò ní rídìí yín láéláé. Mo dúpẹ́ pẹ̀ tí ẹ̀gbọ́nrìn wá síwájú ìlú. Dájúdájú, kò sí ẹni tó tún lè mọ bí ajá yín ti ṣe ju olúwa rẹ̀ tí ó ń bá yín kẹ́dùn. Ó ń kọ́ ni mo sì fẹ́ kí gbogbo àwọn ará ìlú mọ̀. Ó náà ni pé jíjí ni wọ́n jí ajá yìí. Olè tí sì súnmọ́ ọba ní olè náà. Mo rò pé bí a ó bá ṣe nǹkan náà dára, ẹni tí ó kọ́ wá sọ fún ọba nípa ajá yìí ni a ó wádìí. Olúwa rẹ̀ ni a ó sì mú tí yóò bá wa wá ajá náà, nítorí òun ló kọ́ mọ̀ pé ajá sọnù. Òun náà ni yóò sì mọ ibi tí ó sọnù sí. Kẹ́ ẹ gbọ́ kẹ́ ẹ tọ́ o. Ọ̀rọ̀ burúkú tó ń tẹ̀rín. Bí ọkùnrin yìí ti dákẹ́ ní ẹnìkan tó dìde tí ó tún sọ̀rọ̀ tí ó kí i lẹ́yìn pé ọ̀rọ̀ tí ọkùnrin ìṣáájú sọ dára kí wọ́n wádìí lọ́wọ́ ẹni tí ó kọ́ sọ fún ọba. Ẹ̀yin mi èmi. Ẹnì kẹta tí ó tún dìde sọ̀rọ̀. Òun tún ni ọ̀rẹ́ mi nínú. Olóbá tó sọ èrò rẹ̀ nígbà tí ó sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ̀rọ̀ wí báyìí pé ẹ kú ìjókòó gbogbo mi, ẹ kú àpérò náà. Kọ́lọ́run má jẹ́ kí ó ṣerú nǹkan báyìí ní a ó máa péjọ sí nígbà gbogbo. Ọ̀hún, àjẹ́ kí lànà mú kúrò ní. Ta ni ó mọ̀ pé ajá àná ló pa ọmọ jẹ? Ta ni ṣàì mọ̀ pé àkàrà ògùn ló jẹ ajá yìí? Ṣé èmi ọ̀rẹ́ mi inú rẹ̀ nìyí? Ó pẹ́ tí ti ń pa èrò náà kí ó tó wá di pé ó jí ajá náà ní òru ìjẹta mọ́jú àná. Wọ́n sì sọ fún nígbà náà kò tó. Ògbólógbòó lè ní. Wọ́n tí mo sì rí níbẹ̀ ni pé ó yẹ kí ìlú ṣe fún un bí ó bá ti yẹ. Olórí burúkú ènìyàn náà ni. Èmi pàápàá kò tún ní jábà ṣe ọ̀rẹ́ mọ́ kí ó máa bá tirẹ̀ lọ kó máa lọ kó bá mi. Lẹ́yìn tí ó sọ báyìí tán, ó kọjú sí èmi pàápàá wípé ṣé o lè nìyí? Ìgbà tí mo ní kí o má jalè mọ́ òwò gbọ́. Ìgbà tí mo ní kí o má sọ̀rọ̀, ó fi ọ̀rọ̀ sísọ sílẹ̀. Ìgbà tí mo ní kí o má hùwà wọ̀bìà, ó gbà sí mi lẹ́nu. wọ́n tí ó déyìn bí ẹrú tí ọkùnrin balẹ̀ tí òun hùwà bí ìjòyè tí òun paguru mọ́ ọba ọlọ́ba. Ìwọ mọ̀ pé ẹ̀tẹ́ nígbẹ̀yìn aláṣejù àti pé ọjọ́ gbogbo ń tó lè ráì ọjọ́ kan tó lóhùn. Ìwọ adé ìlú má wòye lè mọ́ bá ọ lónìí àfi bí ọba bá mú ìlérí rẹ̀ ṣe tó fi ọ́ lé àwọn ọ̀dọ́mọkùnrin lọ́wọ́. Ẹ̀yin ọ̀rẹ́ mi, ẹ̀rù bà mí láti gbọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ tí ọkùnrin yìí sọ. Mo sì ti ní kí n lẹ́nu kí n sọ̀rọ̀ báyìí. Omi ló bọ́ lójú mi. Nítorí bí ìlú náà ti tóbi tó ni, ọkùnrin yìí ni ọkùnrin tí mo fẹ́ràn jù. Ṣé ní ẹjọ́ máa ń wọlé tí àtijọ́ máa ń jáde? Ọ̀rọ̀kọ́rọ̀ tí ó bá tilẹ̀ ti sọ nípa mi pẹ̀lú yóò yẹ kí ẹnikẹ́ni gbàgbé. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni gbogbo ohun tí ó sọ sílẹ̀ wọ̀nyí, irọ́ ló fi pamọ́ nì. Níkẹyìn ṣá mo lẹ́nu mo sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ̀rọ̀ mú ní. Lóòótọ́ lódodo ti tán, o kò sì sí mọ́. Ṣàṣà ènìyàn ni a lè gbẹ́kẹ̀lé lábẹ́ ọ̀run. Mo ti torí ẹ̀gàn, mo ní ẹgbẹ̀rin ọ̀rẹ́. Bí irun bá ń bú mi, irun wa máa yìn mí. Ìwọ tí ò ń bá mi jẹ tí ò ń bá mi mu, ó tún wá pẹ̀lú àwọn tí ń di rìkíṣí mi. Kì í ṣe ẹjọ́ rẹ o. Èmi ni mo pe ogun tí mo rí ogun. Èmi ni mo pọ̀ ọ̀tẹ̀ tí mo rí ọ̀tẹ̀. Èmi ni mo fi ọwọ́ ara mi fa ìbèrè pè mọ́ra. Èmi ni mo bá aláìṣòdodo ṣọ̀rẹ́ tí mo pe olè kí ó wá jà mí tí mo sì fi bàtà wọ́ ẹ̀ sí ara o. Ṣùgbọ́n lágbára bá tí ó bá dìgbò lu ẹ̀gún, aṣọ ẹ̀ ni yóò fàya. Ẹni tí ó bá ń ṣe ibi, ipa ibi ni yóò ti ṣubú. Kí n tó kúrò ní, wọn ò dá sẹ́ríà fún. Bí mo ti ń sọ̀rọ̀ ni ọ̀bẹ asọ́rọ̀ mi wà ní ìdí mi. Nígbà tí mo sì parí ọ̀rọ̀ mi tán, mo fà á yọ, mo sì gún ọkùnrin náà pa. Nígbà tí mo sì rí i pé àwọn àgbàlú náà bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí bí nítorí ohun tí mo ṣe yìí, mo bọ́ sí àárín wọn, mo sì pa gbogbo wọn kú ọba. Lẹ́yìn náà ni mo pàṣẹ kí àwọn ọ̀dọ́mọkùnrin sí wọn. Ṣùgbọ́n ilẹ̀ di òkúta kò sì gbẹ nítorí tí ó kọ̀ láti gba òkú wọn. Òkú ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ni. Lẹ́yìn èyí ni mo sì tún pàṣẹ kí wọ́n gbé wọn jù sínú omi òkun. Wọ́n kọ̀ wọ́n sì sọ wọ́n sí òkè padà. Nígbà tí mo ní kí wọ́n gbé wọn kọ́ sí orí igi, ṣùgbọ́n nígbà tí wọ́n dé orí igi yẹ orí fún wọn, wọ́n sì ti ń jábọ́ ní ilẹ̀. Ẹ̀wọ̀n kan ti ọ̀run wá, ó sì dè wọ́n sí òfurufú. Ibẹ̀ ni wọ́n sì wà títí wọ́n fi bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí rà, tí àwọn ẹyẹ ojú ọ̀run sì ń balẹ̀ wọn, tí wọ́n ń yàgbé lé wọn, tí wọ́n sì ń ṣàwọn jẹ. Wọ́n máa sọ pé ẹni tá a ní kó fẹ́ ni lójú, ata ló fi sẹ́nu. Ẹni tá a ní kó kí ni lẹ́yìn, ẹ̀gún ló fi sọ́wọ́. Ọlọ́run á máa gbà wá lọ́wọ́ àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ burúkú. Àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ tí wọ́n ń bá wa rẹ́rìn jẹ́ pé lẹ́yìn wa tẹ̀wá náà ń dì. Kò jù bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ lọ́sẹ̀. Mo mọ̀ pé ó ń wù wá ká máa tẹ̀síwájú, ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀sẹ̀ tó ń bọ̀ láti tẹ̀síwájú. Títí ọ̀sẹ̀ tó wá ń bọ̀ nǹkan, ẹ máa gbádùn ara yín. Ó ti gbà kan náà.
Kú kàlẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ wo ọkùnrin, obìnrin, ọmọdé àti àgbà olólùfẹ́ yín ìbùkún olúwa ọmọ Sànúsí tí ẹ mọ̀ sí Àpèkẹ́ tún dé pẹ̀lú àrà ọ̀tọ̀ àlọ́ tó kún fún ọgbọ́n, òye àti ọ̀rọ̀ ìjìnlẹ̀ Yorùbá. Ẹ máa bá wa ká lọ. Àṣà Yorùbá kò mọ̀ nípa rẹ̀.
Line ho, uyu line lero mana mene, mana wanzeru. Line ho,
line oh, uyu line lero mana mene, mana wanzeru. Ukacha mama wa amatengazaje kusesa bakomo pamaivaje.
ugaja mama,
Early morning
amadingataje.
kusesa bakomo lamairage.
Magoro wali,
Makolo aline
amuya mikira.
akuti line lero mwana mene, mwana wanzeru.
makolo alime amuya mikira
akutirinde lero mwana ameneyo mwana wa nzeru line uyu linde lero mwana amene mwana wa nzeru
Oh,